in the history of the Jewish nation in Eretz Yisrael. And we went up to the periods of kings, and that was good. But then gradually things went down again, and it leads to the complete exile, first of the 10 tribes. And that's the description here. And we're going to have the exile of the 10 tribes, and the Torah is going to describe, the Psukim here are going to describe why it happened, the steps of how this came about. And we're learning the Malbim on this a little bit, so it's very interesting. Okay, here we go. Ready? Bimei Pekach Melech Yisrael, Ba Tiglat Pileser Melech Ashur, Vikach et Ion, Bet Avel, Bet Macha, Bet Yanoach, Bet Kedesh, Bet Chatzor, Bet Gilad, Bet Glilav, Kol Eretz Naphtali, Viaglem Ashura. So in the days of Pekach, Melech Yisrael, came Tiglat-Pileser Melech Ashur, this king of Ashur, and he took all these cities from Yisrael and all Eretz the Galil, Gilad, Galil, and Naphtali, and he exiled all those people, all those Yisraelim to Ashura, beginning of the exiles. Vikshar Kesher Hoshea ben Ela al Pekach ben Ramalyahu, Vyakehu Vyamitehu, Yumloch Taktav Bishnat Esrim Lyotam ben Uziah. So then Hoshea ben Ela, he made a plot against Ramalyahu, struck him, killed him, and ruled after him. V'yeter divrei Pekach v'kol asher asa, hinam ketuvim al sefer divrei Yomi Melech Yisrael. Bishnat Shtayim LePekach ben Ramalyahu, Melech Yisrael, Malach Yotam ben Uziyahu, Melech Yehuda. Okay, in the second year of Pekach ben Ramalyahu, he was the king of Israel. At that time, Malach Yotam ben Uziyahu, Melech Yehuda. Ben Esrim b'chamesh shana haya b'malcho v'sheish esrei shana malach b'Yerushalayim. Shem imo Yerusha bat Sado. V'yasa yashar b'nei Hashem k'kol asher asa Uziyahu aviv asa. So here we have Yotam doing Yashar. Rakabamot la saru od ha'am zabchim u'makatrim b'bamot. Hu bana et shar Beit Hashem elyon. So they were still making sacrifices on the individual bamot, which was asur. So that wasn't able to stop that, or he didn't stop that. But what he did is he built up the shar of the Beit Hashem elyon. He built it, glorified it, the upper gate of the Beis Hamikdash. V'yeter divrei Yotam asher asa Eloheim t'mal sefer divrei Yomi Melech Yehuda. Yomi mahem hechel Hashem lashliach Yehuda Retzin Melech Aram vet Pekach ben Ramalyahu. Okay, in those days Hashem sent into Yehuda Retzin Melech Aram, one of the kings of Aram, and Pekach ben Ramalyahu, who was the king of Israel. He was also going with the Melech Aram against Yehuda. V'yishkav Yotam im avotav, v'kaver im avotav be'ir David aviv yimloch Achaz b'no taktav. Then Yotam passed away, and Achaz followed him. Bishnat Sheva Esrei Shana LePekach ben Ramalyahu, Malach Achaz ben Yotam Melech Yehuda. Ben Ashim Shana Achaz b'Malcho, Sheshes Rishana Malach b'Yerushalayim, V'osah Yash b'nei Hashem Elokav Kedavid Aviv. Okay, now is Achaz. So he didn't do what was right, like David HaMelech. I'm up to Gimel. I'm up to Tez Zayin Gimel. V'elech b'derech Malchi Yisrael v'gam et bano hevir ba'esh. Katoavot agoyim asher harish Hashem otam b'nei b'nei Yisrael. Okay, so it's interesting, the pasuk says in moderate language. It doesn't say Asara. I said he didn't do good like Yashar, like his father, but he did really bad. So I'm not sure what that means anyway. But the point is that here you have Achaz, a Russia, a bad king. He went in the ways of Malchi Yisrael, and he even put his sons into the fire. He did Avodah Zarah of the worst kind. And he made sacrifices in the Bamot, and on the Bamot, on the altars, and on the hills, and under every green tree. Az Yaleh Ratzin Melech Aram Pekach ben Ramalyahu Melech Yisrael Yerushalayim Milchama V'yatzuru al Achaz Lo Yachlu Lelachem. Then came Ratzin, the king of Aram, and Pekach ben Ramalyahu, the king of Israel. They both came to fight against the Melech of Yehuda, and they sieged the city. They weren't able to take Yerushalayim. However, Bedahi Heishiv Ratzin Melech Aram et Eilat Aram V'nashel et Yehudim me'elot va'adomim bo Eilat v'yeshvu sham ad hayom hazeh. So, but what did happen is Ratzin, the king of Aram, he returned Eilat to Aram, and he removed the Jews from there, and the Adomim, people Adom came there, and they went throughout there till this day. Yishlach Achaz Malachim El Tiglat Pileser Melech Ashur Lemor Avdecha Ubincha Ani Alei Vosheni Mikaf Melech Aram Mikaf Melech Yisrael Hakomi Malai. So what happens then? So Achaz is being sieged by the king of Israel and by the king of Aram. So what does he do? He sends the king of Ashur, Tiglath-Pileser, the king of Ashur, to help him. I'm your servant. Help me from these other two kings. Yikach Achaz et Kesef et Zahav Nimsa Beit Hashem Botzrot Beit HaMelech V'Yishlach Melech Ashur Shochad. He took all the treasure from the storehouse of the Beis Hamikdash, and he sent it to Ashur for a bribe. V'yishmar alav Melech Ashur v'yal Melech Ashur el Damasek v'yitpaseha v'yagleha kira v'edratzin hemit. So the Melech Ashur worked with Achaz, and he listened to him, and he went against. He went to Damascus, and he captured it, and he exiled the people there to Kir, which was part of Ashur. Vedratzin Hemit, and the other king of Aram he killed. Melech Achaz Nikrat Tiglath-Pileser Melech Ashur Damascus V'yared Mizbeach Asher b'Damascus V'yishlach HaMelech Achaz El Uriah Cohen et Temut HaMizbeach V'tavnito L'kol Masehu. Okay, so what happens then? So it seems what happens is this guy Achaz, this king Achaz, now subjugated himself to the Melech Ashur. He got his help to save him from the other kings, and he didn't only subjugate himself politically. He also went into his spiritual world. So he went to Damascus, which was Ashur. He saw their Mizbeach there, and he said to the king, the king Achaz sent to Uriah Cohen, the Kohen Gadol, an image, a picture, or a sculpture of the Mizbeach, which he saw in Damascus. So he was a Russia. V'yeven Uriah HaKohen et HaMizbeach, K'chol asher shalach HaMelech Achaz miDamascus, Ken asa Uriah HaKohen ad bo HaMelech Achaz miDamascus. So he told Uriah he wants to build a Mizbeach just like they had in Damascus, and Uriah did it until he came. It seems like the way the Malbim learns is Uriah Cohen was actually not a bad person. He was probably a type of tzaddik, but he did like Aharon Cohen did. He chose the worst evil, is to work with this king rather than to go against him altogether. So in other words, they did renovations in the Beis Hamikdash. They didn't understand that it was divine. They brought in this other Mizbeach that they liked, moved it in and started making sacrifice on this Mizbeach, and Uriah Cohen worked with him on all that.
He didn't fight him.
What would happen if he fought him? No good would come out of it. That's the idea. Or Uriah Cohen would get killed. It would happen anyway. So he decided to work with him. That's what it seems like. Sort of like Aharon Cohen did with the Egel Azahav. Okay. Gabo Melech min Damascus, V'yar Melech et Mizbeach, V'yikrav Melech al Mizbeach Galav. So then the king came from Damascus, and he saw the Mizbeach, which was set up there, and he went and we brought a korban on the mizbeach. So a few problems here. One is he was not a Kohen, he was a king. Wasn't something he could do. Furthermore, it's the wrong mizbeach. He brought in two mizbeach. There were two mizbeachot there. V'yaktero et olato v'et mitchato v'yasech et nizko v'yizrok et dam hashlamim shelo al mizbeach. He did all the korbanot there on the mizbeach. V'et mizbeach and the choshet shelefnei Hashem v'yakrev me et pnei habayit mebein hamizbeach mebein beit Hashem yiten oto al yerech hamizbeach sofana. Now, what happened here is that it's called the mizbeach hanechoshet. The mizbeach is in the middle of the chatzer, which is where all the korbanot are brought, basically. In the times of the Mishkan, it was made of nechoshet, of copper. In the times of the base of Mikdash of Shlomo Melech, was what you're talking about over here, it was made of earth, and it was part of it. It was in the ground, so he didn't move it.
It was stone.
Stone on earth, I think, and it was built into the ground, so you couldn't move it. So what he did, he made another mizbeach, and he put that on the north side, Tzafon, and west, closer to the entrance. So he made that into the main mizbeach. But the mizbeach and the choshet asher lefnei Hashem v'yikrev mit pnei habayit mibein hamizbeach mibein beit Hashem teinoto al yerech hamizbeach tzafona. So he put it between the mizbeach and between the heichal, and he put it a little bit on the north side. So it was there on the north, on the west, closer to the heichal. V'tzaveu v'tzaveh hamelach hachaz et Uriah Cohen lemor al mizbeach hagadol hakter et olat haboker v'et minchat ha'erev v'et olat hamelach v'et minchato v'et olat kol am ha'aretz minchatam v'niskehem v'kol dam olam kol dam zevach alav tizrok mizbach nechoshet yerli levaker. So he commanded Uriah Cohen Gadol, all the main sacrifices will be on the new mizbeach, and the other one will be there for occasional use, not to forget it altogether. Okay. So one thing he did here is, first of all, he didn't recognize that it was all done al pi Hashem. It was all divine. The whole where everything was placed and how it was made, all it was divine, as we learned before in Melachim. All the chachma that's in all of the kelim and all the arrangement. Another thing he did, he's made a duality, because the system in the base of Mikdash is there's one. There's ones. It's a place where it's miramis to the oneness of Hashem, and therefore there's one mizbeach. And he made it into two. Okay, so that's what's going on here. We're going to see more about this as we go further. Oh, actually, one second. Yeah, okay, good. So, I mean, let me speak a little more about this already. So it's sort of a foreshadowing of what's going to be described, of how things were falling apart and how they were going to fall apart. Because Am Yisrael is one, and we have unity between us. We also serve only one God, only Hashem. That's unique to us, our ability to do that in a certain sense. We're going to see about that in a minute. And we're commanded to do that 100%. There can't be any intermediary at all in Am Yisrael. And what happened is, starting with Yeravam, he made it, there were two kingdoms already. He started to make duality. And he also made duality in the way we serve Hashem. He made these golden calves. What happens is, even though they still were serving Hashem, they were using that sort of something else involved here. Images.
And he fired all the Kohanim.
Yeah. Nachon, that's also.
And all of the God-fearing people in Israel came to Yehuda.
They all came to Yehuda. Nachon. So what you're hearing is having a breakdown of the way the Jewish people has to work. And we're being influenced by the non-Jewish systems, which are intermediaries and not the singleness of Am Yisrael. Let me show you a pasuk, very interesting pasuk about this. Here, there's a pasuk in Zos Bracha. It's the bracha for Zvulun. So it says for Zvulun. Zvulun amar samach Zvulun b'tzeitecha Yisachar bo'alecha. Zvulun will rejoice as he goes out because he was a merchant, and Yisachar in his tent because he'll be supported by Zvulun as he learns Torah. Amim har yikra'u, the nations they'll call out to the mountain. Sham yizbechu zivchei tzedek. There they'll sacrifice righteous sacrifices. Ki shefa yamim yinaku u'sfuni timunin chol. Okay, so now Rashi says like this very interesting medrash Rashi brings over here. Amim har yikro. Here's a medrash. The nations will call out to the nation. Al yidei pragmatia shel Zvulun. Can call out to the mountain through the business of Zvulun. Tagre akum ba'im el artso. Businessmen will come to Eretz Yisrael. Zvulun's coming back and forth. Businessmen are coming to visit us. They get to do trades. Fu omed al asfar. So Zvulun is on the edge, receiving the business partners. Veim omrim, hol nitzta'arnu ad ka nelech ad Yerushalayim. Since we had so much trouble to get all the Eretz Yisrael for business, let's go see Yerushalayim. The nations would say, they're going. V'nira ma yirata shal umazo ma maseha. Let's see what the fear of this nation is, and what they serve, and what are their actions. They see all Yisrael, they're serving one God. And they also eat one kind of food. Everybody eats kosher. It's something we haven't seen before. We're unified by the way we eat as well. Because the nations, the Ovdei Avodah Zorah, Eloho shel zeh, lo ke'eloho shel zeh. The God of this one is not the God of the other. Each other all have their own gods. Lo machalo shel zeh, lo machalo shel zeh. They all have their own foods, and they're all separate. They said, "Oh, this is the most kosher nation. This is amazing. Look at this oneness of everything." Umitgairim sham. Shnemar, and they would be mitgair. They would become gerim. Shnemar sham is tzedek. There they will sacrifices of tzedek. In another place, it also talks about one Kohen Gadol. I thought it was Rashi going to mention here also, but one Kohen Gadol and one Beis Hamikdash, one Yerushalayim. There's all ones, and the ones one food, one Am, and when the nations will see that, they'll convert, because they never saw a thing like that. This oneness, everything is pervaded with oneness. So what happened here is the oneness was eroded in Am Yisrael, and that led to degeneration, gradual falling apart of everything. The unity of the Am, two nations, two kingdoms. The unity of the Beis Hamikdash over here, two mizbachot. Okay, let's see further. We're up to Tezayin. Vyas Uriah Cohen, Kakal Asher Tiva HaMelech Achaz. So Uriah did everything that he was told. V'katzeit HaMelech Achaz et HaMizgarot HaMachonot Vyasar Me'alehem et HaKiur V'Tayam Horid Me'al HaBakar HaNachoshet Sher Takteah V'Yitein Oto Al Martzefet Avanim. So what did he do further? This evil king, Achaz, he cut down they had the lavers, the place where they washed. They had these basins, and they had on top where the water came out. So he cut them up and got rid of them. And he took the Yam Shel Shlomo, took it down from off the ox and put it on the floor. He did redesigning. For some reason, he thought that he should redesign everything. Vet Musa Shabbat Asher Banu V'Bayit Ve'et V'Vo Melech Kitzono Heisev Beit Hashem Mipnei Melech Hashur. They also got rid of the Musa Shabbat. That was like a place where the people coming, the Kohanim coming, would stay. He got rid of that. And also, it said the entrance to the king from the outside. There was an entranceway from the Beis Hamikdash, from the palace of the king to the Beis Hamikdash. He took that and he turned it around in Esav Beit Hashem. He brought it to the front. So basically what he did is he cut off the Beis Hamikdash. There was no more entrance. It says in Mibnei Melech Hashur. So he basically stopped people from getting to the Beis Hamikdash. That's what it says in Divrei Yamim. I think he explains that in another case more.
This palace is south of the Beit HaMikdash?
Not sure. V'yetu Divrei, it sounds right. I think so. V'yetu Divrei Achaz asher asa halohem ketuvim al sefer Divrei Yamim l'Malchi Yehuda. Okay, so the rest explained in Divrei Yamim. V'yishkav Achaz im avutav v'kaver im avutav b'ir David v'yimloch Chizkiyahu beno taktav. Okay. So then came Chizkiyahu. So here comes the bright light. Chizkiyahu was a big tzaddik, but it's going to go back. It's going to go back and describe how we got to where we got. The psukim here. I just wanted to give the background before I started with really today's the main part I wanted to talk about. A lot of it happened with Achaz. Achaz brought things down really low. Yeah. Okay. Bishnat Shtei Mesrei, and his father Chizkiyahu was a tzaddik, and so he was a big Baal Tshuva. He changed things around. But okay. Bishnat Shtei Mesrei la'Achaz Melech Yehuda Malach Hoshea ben Eila b'Shamron Yisrael Teisha Shanim. Now it's going back to describe what happened with Achaz. So in the 12th year of Achaz, the king of Yehuda, Hoshea ben Eila was the king of Shamron. He was king of Israel in Shamron. V'yasar b'nei Hashem rak lo kamal Yisrael asher hayu lefanav. He did bad in Hashem's eyes, but not like the Malach Yisrael that were before him. Now this is talking about Eila. So what do you mean didn't do bad like the ones before? It means the Agalim, the golden calves were gone already. So they weren't serving those at least. Okay.
Hoshea.
Yeah, Hoshea ben Eila, yeah. Allah Shalmaneser. So then comes Shalmaneser Melech Ashur, Pilo Hoshea Eved V'yashev Lo Mincha. Then came Shalmaneser, now the king of Ashur, and Hoshea became his servant and brought him gifts. V'yimtza Melech Ashur Hoshea Kesher. Sher Shalach Malachim El So Melech Mitzrayim Lo He'ala Mincha Melech Ashur B'shana B'shana V'yatzreu Melech Ashur V'yatzreu Beit Kela. So basically, Hoshea tried to get out of this servitude, and he tried to make a deal with Mitzrayim to get him out of it. He stopped paying the taxes, and he got caught and sent to jail by Shalmaneser. V'yal Melech Ashur b'kol ha'aretz v'yal Shamron v'yatzar aleya shlosh shanim. Then what's happened? The king of Ashur went through all of Eretz Yisrael, and the king was in jail now. He was in charge. Yeah. And he went to Shamron and he sieged it 3 years. B'shnat Tishit Hoshea l'chad Melech Ashur et Shamron v'yogel et Yisrael Ashura v'yoshev otam b'chlach u'b'chavor nahar Gozan v'ari Madai. Okay, so here we're describing the final galut of the 10 tribes is happening over here. Yeah. Vayhi ki chatu Yisrael. And now, what happens? The Pesukim describe how it came about. This was the Galut. This was the Galut Klali. This is what just described this last Pesukim. It's written sort of modestly, but this, the Malbim says, this was it. They put the king in jail. He went, rounded up all the people, the 10 tribes, and kicked them out. Sent them to Ashur and all over the place. Okay. Now the Pesukim come describe, the Ruach HaKodesh describes how this happened. V'ki chatu b'nei Yisrael l'Hashem Eloheihem. Hamala otam eretz Mitzrayim. B'tachas yad Paro, Melech Mitzrayim. V'yu Elohim achirim. So then what happened was, this came about when Bnei Yisrael sinned to Hashem, who brought them out of Egypt from the hands of Paro, the king of Mitzrayim, and they feared other gods. Okay, so here you see again that it didn't mean that right away they denied Hashem, but they feared other gods as well. They started to do a shituf. And that's how it began. V'yalchu b'chukot hagoyim asher rish Hashem b'nei Yisrael u'malki Yisrael asher asu. They started to go in the statutes of the nations, which Hashem sent away before them, and what the kings of Israel had started to do, then people were taking them on. All the statutes of the nations. Okay, 1 second. Okay, let me read you now. One more pasuk, and then I want to do the Malbim. V'yachapu b'nei Israel dvarim asher lo kein al Hashem Elokehem. Yivnu lahem bamot b'kol areihem migdal notrim ad ir mevtzar. And they denied all kinds of things about Hashem. They covered them over, the proper understanding of Hashem, and they started building bamot everywhere. V'yatzivu lahem matzevot v'asherim al kol giva gavoa v'tachat kol eitz ronan. And they had everywhere matzevot, altars, and they also had these trees on every hill all over the place. V'katu sham b'kol bamot kagoyim asher hegla Hashem ebnehem v'yasu devarim ra'im lakis et Hashem. Okay, let's go back to the Malbim. I want to do the Malbim. Vahi ata siper sibat galad Yisrael. Shahaya al ro pishahem shahalchu medechi al dechi. Now it's going to tell you about the galot of Yisrael, why we were sent to exile. This is a very radical thing. This is not what Hashem is ideal in everything He did till now. He wanted to settle in Eretz Yisrael, but we had to go to Galut. This thing came about that the Eitzah of Hashem was to send us to Galut. Why? Because they did many sins and they went from dechi to dechi, from stumbling to stumbling, from level to level of going away from Hashem. Indeed, they sinned against Hashem and brought them out of Egypt. So what it means to say is all the nations, they were given under the nature. They were given over to nature. And the rule of the mazalot, of the different influences of the world. Al shechoshvim otam le'mitzaim beina elokim lo yichashev lehem avon. So Malbim writes, when they would serve the forces of heavens, the forces of nature, they considered them the means to serving Hashem. They said, look, Hashem made all this. How amazing. Wisdom of Hashem is in all the world. We're going to serve nature. And that's not, for the nations, it's not considered a sin, the Malbim writes.
For the nations.
For the nations. And that's called shituf. In other words, they were not denying Hashem Echad. They said Hashem Echad. But they felt that you can serve Hashem through serving His creation as well. And the spiritual forces behind creation. So we're serving the spiritual forces behind creation. And for them, that's not an avon, that's not a sin according to the Malbim at least. That's shituf. It's called serving Hashem Echad with other intermediaries.
In their opinion. Or in the Malbim's opinion.
The Malbim's opinion is it's not an avon.
It's not an avon?
No. As long as you have Hashem Echad in mind, and for the nations, they're also serving the spirits of the spiritual sources behind nature, so then that's okay.
For the nations or
for the nations. Aval Yisrael be'ed hotziam me'eretz Mitzrayim hifla Hashem mikol amim. But Yisrael, in the time when Hashem brought us out of Egypt, He made us separate from all the nations. Bashchachato hamyuchedet, with His particular divine providence on Yisrael. Hotziam miyot tachat marechet hokokavam. He took it out from under the mazalos, other influences. Shayu chelko v'nachlato tachat ashkachto haprati. They should be His inheritance, special inheritance, under His particular guidance, His specific guidance, without nature, not nature. Ve'ein lahem lirah me'elohim acharim. They don't have to fear of other forces. Me'kolchet ha'kolkavim u'mishterei hashmayim. And all the different forces of the universe, they don't have to be afraid of them. Kol shkein la'avdam l'shtachvot lahem. And all the more, they don't have to serve them. Ki netunim netumihema l'Hashem below emtza'i. They're giving to Hashem without an intermediary. Moshe Kasuv, now there's a pasuk that says this. Very interesting pasuk. It says like this. The Malbim quotes the pasuk. The pasuk, it's in Etchanan, Perek Dalet pasuk Yud Tet. Listen to this pasuk. Yeah, I'll read it to you. Dalad Yotet. Upain Tisa Einecha. Don't forget what you saw at Sinai and you didn't see any images. Upain, right? No images. No, nothing else. Hashem is invisible. No goof, no images. Asr, asr. Upain Tisa Einecha Hashemayim. Rita et Hashemesh v'et Yireach. Perhaps you'll lift your eyes to the heavens and you'll see the sun and the moon. V'et kol chavim. Kol tzava Hashemayim. All the troops of heavens. And you will be pulled away, and you'll bow to them, and you'll serve them. Asher chalak Hashem Elokecha otam, which Hashem apportioned them the kol ha'amim, tachas kol hashemayim, tachas kol hashemayim. Hashem apportioned them for all the nations. So there it is. That the Malbim learns that pasuk the way it sounds. It sounds like yes, the nations do serve them, and Hashem is okay with that. They also do this. They see there's these spiritual forces in the world, and they say, wow, Hashem Echad made them, and we'll serve Hashem and them, through them. But not us, because we got taken out of V'etchem lakach Hashem yotzi etchem mikor barzo mitzrayim liyotli lo la'am nachalak yom hazeh. But Hashem brought you out of the Kor Barzo. The Kor Barzo means smelting pot, where you take off the dross and you purify their understanding. And that they got by being in the Galus of Mitzrayim and being taken out of Mitzrayim. So the Jews understand there's only one Hashem, and you have to serve Him directly. But the other nations don't understand that, and so therefore, for them Shituf is okay, and for us it's not. That's what the Malbim explains here. I just want to tell you what the Orach Chaim says in last week's parsha. It says he basically explains how Hashem could have taken us out of Mitzrayim in a different way. Like quickly, he could have destroyed the Mitzrayim all at once. He made 10 plagues, and he told Moshe to warn Paro, and each time Paro's heart was hardened, and the whole process. So basically, Orach Chaim says, I think there are 4 elements here that he showed us in the process of going out of Egypt. First of all, he showed us that every single element of the world, wind, air, fire, animals, insects, everything is not run by its nature. It doesn't have its own nature, which is immutable. It's all guided by Hashem, and when He wants to, He can change it. So we saw that Hashem's behind everything. That's one thing we saw. Another thing we saw is that He chose us. He chose a certain nation. That's us. And He brought us out with all these miracles. Another thing He showed us is that there's reward for the good and there's punishment for the bad in this amazing ways. Number 3. And number 4, He showed us another 4. He made a story out of them. That's number 4. And Hashem wanted to make a story. He could have done it a different way, but He kept hardening Paro's heart, and Moshe would go in, do this and that, another plague, another hardening of the heart, another plague. And this was Hashem's plan to make a big story that we would tell over forever. Because the stories are the most deep message you can get. If you have a story, you can relive it. And so every generation, we tell the story of going out of Egypt, and we live all that emunah that comes out of it, all that faith. So that's who we are. We were formed by this experience of going out of Egypt, our deep faith that we can serve Hashem directly, and the other nations didn't have that, can't do that. Or can't do it. Obviously you could, we just saw they could do it, but if they don't, it's normal for them that they do a shituf, but not for us. Okay, so that's what it's saying here. So let's go further. It comes out in these psukim. Viki chatu b'nei Yisrael Hashem Elokehem Hamala otam me'eretz Mitzrayim b'tachat yad Paro melech Mitzrayim v'yu Elohim acherim. So it happened when the Jews sinned. I'm reading the Malbim. Take it back to the Malbim. I'm sorry. So for the other nations, Shituf is okay. They serve Hashem Echad, and they know there's one Hashem. But in the process of serving Hashem, they serve the forces that Hashem created as well. For the nations, that's okay. For us, it's totally us. So all the sun and the stars and the moon, that was the portion of the nations. They use that as part of their service. They're into nature. They're excited about nature, and they serve it. Okay. So the first sin of Israel was that they feared other gods. Shotziam Eretz Mitzrayim Liot Tachet Hashkachato. That was the first sin. In other words, they were afraid of nature and the forces of nature and the forces behind nature, and they didn't have this complete confidence that Hashem runs everything, and they can turn to Hashem and serve Hashem and be freed from all their enemies and all their troubles. They fell short of that, and they started using the methods of the people around them, intermediaries. And then after that, they went to the next level down. So the Jews were also doing shituf. That was their first problem. And that's what, as we said, that's what Yeravam ben Nevat did. It was all shituf. The Egli Azav was shituf. And see, there was division. They're divided. They made Hashem's service instead of a single God with nothing else in between, they put something else, an image. They make it more miragesh, to bring out the feeling, because people respond to images. But by us, that's not how it works. We have to find the feeling through our deep amunah, our deep understanding. And we interact with the world. We see Hashem in nature, but we don't serve nature. We serve what's behind nature. And it's very difficult. It's a high level. Okay, but that's what the Jews are made for the high level. Okay, so what happened after that? They did a shituf, and then they went after the statues of the nations and the ones which the Malchi Yisrael set up. They believed in the forces of the heavens. Don't fear from the signs of heaven, because the nations do that. Because they're not real. They don't have any significance, actually. Everything is from Hashem alone. And also, what other chukot did they follow? They followed the statutes. They started doing the different types of arayot, right? The sexual practices of the goyim that come along next. That's called chukot. That's another, the statues of the nations. And they were rejected from the Eretz Canaan because of that. And then if you do that, you'll also be rejected from Eretz Canaan. So we started to do that also. V'yachafu. Okay, going to pasuk tet. V'chapu b'nei Yisrael devarim asher lo kein al Hashem. And I think it means that l'chafot means to cover over. Maybe he means it's a tribute. You could say in English. I think it means over here. V'yachafu b'nei Yisrael devarim asher lo kein al Hashem Elokeihem. They attributed things to Hashem which were not true. V'yavnu lahem ba'amot b'kol areihem v'migdal notrim ad ir mivtzar. Zak the Malbim. V'yichapu hosiv peshel lachapot inyane minot. Belokud. They started to put types of heresy into their understanding of Hashem. Kamo kat hameshanim. I'm not sure what the Meshanim is. It sounds like the group of the Meshanim, the ones that change, or maybe it means the duo. Hamagabshim, the ones that they were Magashem. Magashem means you look at Hashem in a material way. I'm reading the Malbim right now.
Okay.
They started to go when it says this pasuk of Tet, V'chapu, they attributed to Hashem things which were not true. Means they started to see Hashem in a more physical way. V'masalkim idea of Hashkacha. And they didn't think that Hashem had providence on everything. Things were given over to nature and other forces as well as Hashem.
They limited his.
Yeah. From Dabrim Sara B'Toarim Kedoma, they also spoke badly about the titles of Hashem. Like so that's a very interesting thing. So they did all these things. Like they understood things in a physical way, like the Torah describing things. They understood it too literally. And it's not so easy to get out of that. That's something which was coming through the Galut, and we're still trying to understand things better. Like all the descriptions are not physical. You have to go past that. But the people started falling into that. Also, the titles of Hashem, they understood them improperly. For example, you hear this to talk about a zealous God. And they want to speak bad about the Jews. They said, the God of the Jews is a zealous God. And ours is a kind one, universal peace and love. That's why the Crusades happened and the Inquisition. And yeah. But they talk about a zealous God. So they're starting to be not understand the Torah properly. And attribute false understanding to the Torah. Yeah. I heard it from a professor, or a big intellectual. He started asking, "What about the zealous God?" He bought that nonsense, A Jewish guy, a friend of mine, brilliant guy. Like he was starting up with me, zealous God. That's from the Torah. This is a conservative guy. God keeps kosher, but it's been sold by the world. These wrong understanding. Okay. And also now, furthermore, they spread Bamot everywhere. And even though they served on the Bamot Hashem. However, by doing that, by serving on the Bamot and not going to the Beis HaMikdash, they were undermining the oneness of Hashem. And this is the way it works. The thing that maintains the oneness is there's one Beis HaMikdash. And everybody goes to that Beis HaMikdash. They come together there, and that is fantastic. That's what keeps us connected to Hashem brought us out of Egypt. But when they started doing the Bamot everywhere, and they put the golden calves over there, people wouldn't go up to the Beis HaMikdash. There started to be this idea of unity, of disunity, of multiplicity. More and more. At first, they were serving Hashem on all the Bamot, but it came gradually they became a shutuf. Okay, going further. Pasuk Yud. V'yatzivu lahem matzevot v'sharima al kol giva gavoa v'tachot kol eitz. They put altars and asher trees, and I think were they pine trees, asherim? Some kind of very beautiful tree that they served because it was a symbol of life and beauty. Trees are beautiful also. So what did he say here, the Malbim? But Miriam, then they rebelled even further. They put altars and they started serving Bodazar, idol worship. It became idol worship. Instead of serving Shem with Chituf, it went down to idol worship. Okay, let me read this now. V'katru sham, pasuk Yud Aleph, v'katru sham, v'kol bamot kagoyim asher higla Hashem b'pneihem, v'asu devarim ra'im lakis et Hashem. They serve now Avodah Zarah, like the nations that were exiled before them. So the Malbim says that means the 10 tribes. Among the tribes that were already exiled, and they were serving also.
Who are you talking about now?
Now we're talking about the ones that are left still in Israel.
Judah?
No, we're not talking about Judah.
So about Israel following the Canaanites.
Israel's following also the earlier Israelis, the Israeli kings, that they were already serving Avodah Zarah. Like for example, was it Achav? Achav made it. He brought it down into Avodah Zarah mamish. So they started doing that too. And it says further, V'yasu dvarim ra'im lachis et Hashem. They did things to make Hashem angry. They did things specifically to make Hashem angry. For example, V'yavdu hagelulim sher amar Hashem lahem lo sasu. At the davar hazeh, they also made graven images on purpose to go against Hashem. And he said, Hashem does that. He says, no, we're doing that. That's the Torah. The Torah's wrong. We're doing that. Nations do it. We do what the nations do. They dafka going against Hashem. Yeah.
So the nations that Hashem exiled. So it must be the Canaanites.
It could have been us also.
No, we weren't nations.
The mom says we were, right? And sometimes the tribes are called nations. I don't know. Either way, okay. They're both true.
But
this is many of them have been exiled already. They haven't all been exiled. Now it's going back, describing the process of us falling apart. God Hashem b'Yisrael, Yehuda b'Yad, Kol Nevi'eh. Okay, now what happens after that? Hashem brings the Nevi'im. The Nevi'im start to rebuke us for all that, or during this time there's Nevi'im coming, rebuking us for all of our behavior. God Hashem b'Yisrael, Yehuda b'Yad, Kol Nevi'eh, Kol Chozeh, Lemor Shuvu Medarchechem Arayim, V'Shimru Mitzvotai, V'Chukotai, Kol Torah Asher Tziviti Et Avotechem, Asher Shalachti Aleichem b'Yad Avadai HaNevi'im. So the Nevi'im came and said, you have to serve the whole Torah just like it's written. You can't start doing this. V'lo Shameu. V'yikshu et tarpam ka'oref avotam asher lo eminu b'Hashem Elokehem. So they didn't listen, and they hardened their necks were stiff, like their fathers, which didn't believe in Hashem. Yimasot kukav et brito sher karat et avotam v'irutav asher hiid bam v'yachu achrei hevel v'yabalu v'achrei goyim asher svivotam sher tziva Hashem otam lebilti asot kahem v'yazvu et kol mitzvot Hashem Eloheihem v'yasu lehem masecha shnai magalim. It started with the two calves. Shnei agalim v'yasu asherah v'yishtachavu l'kol tzava hashmayim. And they made asherahs and they started serving idols. V'yavdu et Baal, and they went into Baal, which is the worst one. V'yaviru et b'neihem be'esh v'yiksamu kasamim v'nachashu v'yitmachru l'sot hara b'nei Hashem l'kiso. And they started sacrificing their children, and they did kasima, they did all the witchcraft and the sorcery. V'yitanef Hashem ma'od b'Yisrael v'yisirei me'al panav lo nishar rak shevet Yehuda lavado. Hashem was very angry at them. They didn't stay before him. Only one that was left was Shevet Yehuda. Shevet Yehuda wasn't doing all this yet. I want to point out something else. Just a one thought here is it's interesting. Like the Jewish nation are the chosen nation. We have a very special privilege. That Hashem, we're close to Hashem. Hashem gave us a Torah. We're designated to be close to Him. This the best privilege in the world. But every privilege comes with expectations. There are higher expectations. It's not a freebie. We can't do shituf like the other nations can. We have to do Hashem Levad. If we do shituf, then everything falls apart and doesn't work. For the nations, it could work. For us, not. That's how the Malbim explained it. Okay, now. But Yehuda only was the ones that. So here it is. He got rid of all of them. All the 10 tribes, he got rid of. Only Yehuda was left. The Malbim says, why do you have to send away all the tribes? We're going to see this in a minute. He's going to explain it more. I want to get to that. 1 second. We have just a few minutes left. Okay. So why did Hashem do that? Like it wasn't, like what does it help to send the tribes away? Like work with them. Do something. Right? No. Send them to the nations? That's terrible. Why did Hashem do that? So let's see further. Gam Yehuda lo shamar et mitzvot Hashem Eloheihem. V'yachu b'chukot Yisrael sherasu. What happened? Also Yehuda went bad. And they started serving, they didn't keep all the mitzvot, and they went in all the statutes of the nations. V'yamas Hashem b'kol zer Yisrael, v'yanem b'yad shosim. Adasher hishlicham mipanav. Hashem rejected all the children of Israel, and He afflicted them.
That includes Judah?
Including Yehuda. It's coming to Yehuda. And He afflicted them, and 1 second. No.
Still talking about...
No, this is going back to Yisrael again. That's how the Malbim is. In the second one, I want to get to that. V'yimas Hashem b'kol zer Yisrael. Only the Yisrael, not Yehuda. And what did He do to them? Going back to describe what happened before the exile. V'yanem, first he impoverished them, or afflicted them. I think it means impoverished. V'yanem b'yad shosim. Adasher shlicham mipanav. And then He gave them in the hands of their captors, and then He sent them away from before them. So the Pshat, as the Malbim says, all these things Hashem was doing to the Yisrael in order that Yehuda wouldn't follow in their ways. They're doing shituf, and they're doing avodah zarah. So now it comes first on them affliction and poverty, and Yehuda's supposed to watch this, and that didn't work. And then they were captured by their captors, and then that didn't work either, as Yehuda was still being influenced, and then they sent them away. So in order that Yehuda would not have that influence at all, they have to be gone, because they were pulling Yehuda after them as well.
Make an example.
So they were really bad. In other words, because of all the history of Yeravam and Achav, the history of Yisrael, they were really bad. And then, so therefore Hashem had to first try to make them examples, show them, and let Yehuda separate from them. It wasn't working, so they had to send them out of Eretz Yisrael altogether. That's the pshat. So Hashem couldn't leave them there, because He had to save somebody from falling. So that was Yehuda He tried to save. Yeah.
I was just going to say, it also makes sense that while this example is happening, that Hezekiah becomes the king of Judah, like the one
Oh.
he's learning from the example. Too,
Oh, that's
and
amazing.
He becomes a righteous king.
So he did see it. Hezekiah did see it. Yes.
Yeah.
The Gemara says that he took his father's bones and he dragged them through the streets
Oh, what?
to show that he rejected his father's ways.
Oh, what?
Wow.
Okay. His father's not a Tinuk Shenishba. You know, it's not the same as today's people that are away from Judaism. It's a totally different thing. In those days it was with a vengeance, with
Passion.
yeah. Okay, a little further. We have 2 more minutes. I'm going to squeeze in a little more.
Where do we get to? Which pasuk?
We're up to Kaf Aleph.
Kappa.
Kra Yisrael me'al Beit David, v'amlichu et Yeravam ben Navat, v'yidach Yeravam et Yisrael me'acharei Hashem, v'chtiyam chata gedola. So Hashem ripped Yisrael away from Beit David, and they made Yeravam ben Navat their king, and Yeravam ben Navat, he pushed Yisrael away from Hashem. He caused them to sin. So it all goes back to Yeravam ben Navat, who started changing the Torah and creating separation. All because he wanted his own kavod, his own kingdom. And Yisrael kept going after the sins of Yeravam. I mean, they didn't remove the Egli Zav. Even though Yehu did a good thing, there was a big improvement in the time of Yehu. He stopped the Avodah Zarah, but he didn't stop the Egli Zahav. So there was still this division. Hashem et Yisrael mi'al panav kasher diber b'yad kol avadav v'navim. V'yigel Yisrael mi'al mato Ashura ad yom hazeh. Until there was a complete exile of Israel to Ashur. And now the next part, I want to do this also. It's very interesting. It describes the Kutim. I'll tell you outside real fast what happened with the Kutim. The Kutim was with this nation. They were brought from a place called Kut, that the king brought them there. He cleared out Shomron from Israel. He brought other nations and put them there. One of the nations they were called Kutim. And what happened is the Kutim, because they saw what happened to Israel, this is where the Malbim explains the pasuk that are coming, they didn't believe in Hashem Echad anymore. Because if there was a Elokei Yisrael running the world, then why did he destroy the Jewish people? So therefore they didn't believe in Hashem at all. Then what happens is these lions come. So Hashem sends these lions in. The lions come, and because, for 2 reasons, Hashem sends the lions to show them that there is Elokei Yisrael. And also, he takes the Tzelem Elokim off their face. When you stop serving Hashem, then you lose the divine image on your face, and the animals treat you like another animal. So lions came in and started eating the Kutim. What happens then? What does the king of Ashur do? They come and tell him that they're eating these Kutim, the lions, they're being eaten by lions. So he says, okay, bring in one of the Kohanim that served Avodah Zarah, or that served the duality from Israel. They'll teach them how to do that. They'll teach the Kutim how to do duality. So the truth is, for the Kutim, that would be okay. So now, that's what they taught them. So the Kutim now, he taught them how to serve Hashem, but they still serve their other gods as well. And that's what describes about the Kutim. And they come up throughout the Gemara. They still exist in times of the Gemara, and their status was something complex. Because they were Megayer because of the animals, of the lions, but they kept serving their gods. Some of them did. And there's a big machlokus about that. But okay, that's what happens over here. Okay, very good.